Is it worth the risk to keep on going?
Sure, to win. I mean, that's what we've always done. The money's never been a factor. We raced when we didn't have any.
Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s autopsy report exposed some sad details. On February 18, 2001, during the final lap of the Daytona 500, Dale Earnhardt Sr. wasn't racing for glory. He was guarding it. Acting as a protector for his son, Dale Jr., and teammate Michael Waltrip, he held the line, blocking other racers from overtaking them. But as he maneuvered around Turn 4, Sterling Marlin's car made slight contact with the rear of Earnhardt's number 3 Chevrolet. The bump seemed routine, but at nearly 160 mph, physics took over. His car veered down, then shot upward and slammed head-on into the wall. To onlookers, it didn't seem catastrophic. There were no flames, no explosions, no airborne flips, just a car coasting to a silent stop. But what followed was chilling. Ken Schrader, another driver caught in the incident, rushed to Dale's window, only to recoil in horror. His face said what words couldn't. Dale Earnhardt had just died on the track he dominated for decades. He was rushed to Halifax Medical Center, but at 5:16 p.m., NASCAR's fiercest competitor was pronounced dead. The legend known as the Intimidator had fallen. The official autopsy removed any doubts about what had happened. Dale Earnhardt died instantly from a basilar skull fracture, one of the deadliest head injuries imaginable. The fatal blow occurred when the force of the crash violently snapped his head forward and backward, his neck unable to absorb the motion. There was no pain, no suffering, only immediate unconsciousness and death. In addition to the skull fracture, the autopsy found a fractured left ankle, multiple broken ribs, a broken sternum, and bruising across his chest from the seatbelt. There were early rumors that his seatbelt had torn or failed on impact, leading to speculation that improper equipment or tampering had caused the fatal injury. However, first responders like Tommy Probst insisted the harness was intact. What became undeniable was that Earnhardt had not been wearing the Hans device, a newly developed head and neck restraint that might have prevented the very injury that killed him. He had previously declined to wear it, believing it would limit his movement. That choice sealed his fate. Dale Earnhardt's crash wasn't a freak accident. It was the result of outdated technology and a culture that had long resisted change in the name of tradition and spectacle. NASCAR cars had evolved to become stiffer and more aerodynamic, prioritizing speed at the cost of survivability. When Earnhardt's Chevrolet hit the wall, the force of the impact was not dispersed. It was transferred directly into the cockpit. Combined with the concrete barriers and an absence of mandatory head restraints, the conditions created a perfect storm. This was the kind of crash drivers were expected to walk away from, but not when the car acted like a steel bullet and the wall was an immovable object. In the wake of Earnhardt's death, NASCAR could no longer pretend the danger was an acceptable cost of doing business. His crash exposed every weakness the sport had ignored for years, from equipment to track design. A hard truth settled over the industry. The safety standards in place had failed the one driver believed to be unbreakable. The response was swift and sweeping. NASCAR launched an exhaustive investigation into Earnhardt's crash, scrutinizing everything from the design of his seat to the manufacturing records of his seatbelt. What followed was the most dramatic safety overhaul in the sport's history. The Hans device was made mandatory, ensuring that no driver would suffer the same fatal whiplash again. Tracks began installing safer barriers, steel and foam walls that could absorb the energy of high-speed crashes. NASCAR's Car of Tomorrow, introduced in 2007, featured a reinforced roll cage, repositioned driver seating, improved energy absorption, and a wider body designed to prevent cars from launching airborne. The cockpit became a fortress, designed not just to win races, but to save lives. This overhaul wasn't merely about optics. It was a structural rethinking of everything the sport stood for. What was once a realm of calculated risk now became a science of survivability. Dale's death had forced the sport to evolve, and it would never be the same. Earnhardt's death didn't just change hardware, it changed hearts. A cultural reckoning swept through the NASCAR community. Where drivers once scoffed at new safety innovations, many now wore HANS devices with solemn respect. Pit crews altered protocols. Crew chiefs adjusted designs. Data replaced instinct. The romanticized vision of the daredevil racer was redefined. Courage was now about staying alive, not risking everything. Drivers who once bragged about walking away from fiery crashes began demanding better protection. The idea that real racers didn't need new restraints dissolved overnight. NASCAR's leadership had no choice but to embrace a more scientific, forward-thinking era. The entire sport pivoted from rugged tradition to calculated engineering, acknowledging that no one, not even the Intimidator, was immune to the laws of physics. The impact wasn't just physical, it was deeply emotional. Dale Earnhardt's death made safety a sacred part of racing. It was no longer a choice, it was a responsibility. And that shift became permanent. Here are the final 5 points, 6 to 10, each rewritten from a third-person perspective and structured into a single, uninterrupted paragraph of approximately 1,500 characters. In the 2 decades since Dale Earnhardt's fatal crash, no NASCAR Cup Series driver has died on the track. A staggering shift for a sport once defined by its danger. Every time a car slams into a wall and the driver walks away, it's a testament to the changes born out of Earnhardt's death. From helmets reinforced with new materials to safer barriers lining the walls of every major track, the legacy of February 18, 2001 lives on in engineering, policy, and training. His fatal crash became a blueprint for survival. Racing schools now use footage of the incident as a case study in what went wrong and how it was corrected. Drivers know the difference between walking away and being carried away may lie in the smallest piece of safety tech, most of which was reimagined after Earnhardt's death. His number 3 didn't just belong to a champion, it became a symbol of change. Behind every policy update and safety feature is the echo of that final crash. While his absence still stings for millions, the knowledge that his passing saved countless lives gives fans, families, and racers a reason to keep pushing forward with purpose. The ripple effect of Dale Earnhardt's death reached far beyond NASCAR. International racing organizations such as Formula One, IndyCar, and the World Endurance Championship began collaborating with NASCAR in unprecedented ways, exchanging safety data and adopting mutual improvements in crash protocol. Helmet manufacturers, car engineers, and biomechanics experts across the world began reevaluating design standards. Earnhardt's death underscored a universal truth: no badge, brand, or track could protect a driver from outdated safety gear. Innovations like biometric sensors, crash analytics, and improved restraint systems started appearing not just in stock cars, but in open-wheel racing and endurance vehicles. Motorsports became more connected than ever, no longer operating in silos but moving as a unified force toward greater safety. It was Dale's death that forced that awakening. A loss so deeply personal to one country's sport reverberated through pit lanes worldwide, urging every series to ask the same question NASCAR had to confront: how do we keep our heroes alive? For Dale Earnhardt Jr., the loss of his father wasn't just a public tragedy. It was a personal transformation. He had watched the fatal crash unfold in real time from the front of the pack, not knowing that the man who had taught him everything about racing was taking his final breath just seconds behind him. The trauma was impossible to erase, but Junior didn't retreat. He stepped forward, taking on his father's legacy with both reverence and resolve. He became the face of a new generation of NASCAR, one defined not only by performance but by advocacy. He pushed for continued safety improvements, supported mental health resources for drivers, and never let the memory of that day fade. Fans responded with unwavering loyalty, voting him NASCAR's most popular driver 15 years in a row. At Turn 4 in Daytona, fans still gather in silence, laying down flowers and messages, honoring the moment the sport changed forever. And every time Junior raced, it wasn't just to win, it was to carry that legacy forward, ensuring his father's final lap wouldn't be in vain. The autopsy report didn't just detail Dale Earnhardt's cause of death, it shattered long-standing myths about racing invincibility and forced the entire NASCAR community to confront a brutal reality. Within weeks, the Hans device, once ridiculed, was embraced. What followed was the release of the 300-page Earnhardt report, filled with crash telemetry, safety gear assessments, and high-speed footage that painted a damning picture. Dale's crash was survivable, but the right equipment wasn't in place. That conclusion rippled through the sport like a shockwave. No one could argue with the data. The skull fracture could have been prevented. Every driver, engineer, and team owner now saw themselves in that cockpit, wondering if their car might be the next fatal case study. That fear transformed into action. Seats were remounted, harnesses redesigned, cockpits reinforced. The Hans device became standard. The idea that racing had to be dangerous to be real began to fade. In its place rose a new ideal, that no one should have to die for entertainment. Even in death, Dale Earnhardt remained a central figure in NASCAR. His number, his story, his philosophy, everything about him became woven into the very fabric of the sport. From statues in his hometown of Kannapolis to documentaries dissecting his career, from tributes at every major race to the quiet nods of drivers tipping their caps at Turn 4, the legacy was everywhere. His death redefined NASCAR's identity, pushing it into the future with a reverence for the past. New drivers who never met him still feel his presence in training rooms, in safety briefings, and in the reverent tones used when his name is spoken. His impact extended beyond sport, into culture, music, and film, where he symbolized grit, sacrifice, and transformation. And most of all, he became the reason that every crash now ends with a sigh of relief instead of a press conference. Dale Earnhardt didn't just influence a generation. He saved one. His final lap may have marked the end of an era, but it also ignited a future where fewer tears would be shed on race day. That is his legacy.